Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our subject Disaster Readiness and Risk Reduction. So, today we'll talk about our topic 4, which is volcanic hazards. But before we start, let me first introduce to you the learning outcomes for this lesson. Number 1, by the end of the lesson, you will identify the most common volcanic related hazards in the Philippines, explain the differences of the various volcano related hazards, explain the common signs of an impending volcanic eruption, identify the different types of volcanic hazard maps, and lastly, develop a family emergency preparedness plan to guide them to what to do before, during, and after a volcanic eruption. Volcanology is the study of volcanoes. The role of volcanology is to gain an understanding of how volcanoes work, to further scientific knowledge, and to provide eruption hazards assessment, monitoring, and crisis management. A volcanologist, basically a geologist who focuses on the study of volcanic formation and conducting studies to predict geological hazards such as earthquakes and eruptions, thereby minimizing damages and saving lives. What can you say about these photos? If you say that these photos are about a volcanic eruption, then you are right. So we'll study about this phenomena on the next slide. Volcanic hazards are phenomena arising from volcanic activity that pose potential threat to persons or property in a given area within a given period of time. On the next slides are a list of volcanic hazards that are common in the Philippine active volcanoes. The first hazard that we have is lava flows. These are stream-like flows of incandescent molten rock erupted from a crater or fissure. When lava is degassed and very viscous, it tends to extrude extremely slowly, forming lava domes. So what are the negative impacts and why it is hazardous? Lava flows really threaten human life because lava usually moves slowly in a few centimeters per hour for silicic flows to several kilometers per hour for basaltic flows. Most characterize this as quiet effusive of lava. Major hazards of lava flows, which burying, crushing, covering, burning everything in their path. Another impact is lavas can burn. The intense heat of lavas melt and burn. As lava flows are hot and incandescent, areas it covers are burned, like for example the forest, built up areas, and the houses. Lavas can also bury. Lavas can bury homes and agricultural areas under meters of hardened rocks. Areas affected by lava flows, once solidified, are also rendered useless and will not be useful anymore. For example, is in agriculture. For years due to solid nature of the lava deposit. Lavas can also block bridges and highways, affecting mobility and accessibility of people and communities. And another negative impact is the collapsing viscous lava domes can trigger dangerous pyroclastic flows. Another volcanic hazard is the ashfall or the tephra fall. These are showers of airborne fine to coarse-grained volcanic particles that fall out from the plumes of a volcanic eruption. Ashfall disruption or dispersal is dependent on the prevailing wind direction. So the ashfall or tetrafall will go along or go with the direction of the wind. So whichever the wind is heading, whatever direction it is going. So there will also be the ashfall or the tephra fall. So ashfall endanger life and property by the following. During peak of eruption with excessive ash, it can cause poor or low visibility, especially when driving and if the road is slippery, so it may cause accidents. Another impact of ashfall is loss of agricultural lands if boreal by ashfall is greater than 10 centimeters depth. Another impact is producing suspensions of fine-grained particles in air and water which clogs filters and vents of motors, human lungs, industrial machines, and nuclear power plants. Another impact is ash suspended in air is also dangerous for aircrafts as the abrasive ash can cause the engines to fail if suspended ash is encountered by the airplane. Another impact, carrying of harmful and even the poisonous or unpleasant gases, acids, salts, and close to vent heat. And lastly, burial by tephra can collapse roofs of buildings, break power and communication lines, and damage or kill vegetation. Even thin, which is less than 2 centimeters, falls of ash can damage such critical facilities as hospitals, electric generating plants, pumping stations, storm sewers, and surface drainage systems and sewage treatment plants, and short circuit electric transmission facilities, telephone lines, radio and television transmitters. So the third volcanic hazard is the pyroclastic flows and surges, or the pyroclastic density current. These are turbulent mass of ejected fragmented volcanic materials like ash and rocks and mixed with hot gases. These hot gases may be in 200 degrees Celsius up to 700 degrees Celsius to as hot as 900 degrees Celsius. So these materials flow down slope at very high speeds, which is greater than 600 km per hour. The surges are the more dilute, more mobile derivatives of pyroclastic flows. So what are the impacts of these pyroclastic flows? So these flows and surges are potentially highly destructive owing to their mass, high temperature, high velocity, and great mobility. Pyroclastic flows can be number one, it destroy anything on its path by direct impact. It can also burn sites with hot rocks, debris, and it can burn forest, farmlands, destroy crops and buildings. Some other impacts or negative impacts of these volcanic hazards are deadly effects include asphyxiation or the inhalation of hot ash and gases, boreal incineration or burns, and crushing from the impacts. So the only effective method of risk mitigation is evacuation prior to such eruptions from areas likely to be affected by pyroclastic density currents. So once PVOX or once you hear it from the news that the volcano is about to erupt, so immediately for safety purposes, you need to evacuate. Okay, the next volcanic hazard, lahars. Lahars are rapidly flowing thick mixture of volcanic sediments which are from pyroclastic materials and water. is usually triggered by intense rainfall during typhoons, monsoons, and thunderstorms. Lahar can occur immediately after an eruption or can become long-term problem if there is voluminous pyroclastic materials erupted, such as the case of the 1991 Pinatubo eruption. Lahars can also occur long after an eruption has taken place, such as the lahars at Mayon volcano after the 1984 eruption. Okay, for the negative impacts, lahars have destroyed many villages and lives living on Pinatubo and Mayon volcano because most people live in valleys where lahars flow. So lahars can destroy direct impact like on bridges, roads, and houses. Lahars can also block tributary stream and form a lake. This can submerge villages within the valley of the tributary that was blocked. There is also a danger of the dammed lake breaching or lake breakout, and if this happens, this puts to danger the lives of people in communities downstream. Lahars can also bury valleys and communities with debris. And lastly, lahars can lead to increased deposition of sediments along affected rivers, and as a long-term result, it will result to flooding problems in the low-lying downstream communities. Volcanic gases are gases and aerosols released into the atmosphere, which include water vapor, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen chloride, and hydrogen fluoride. Okay, so what are the negative impacts if these chemicals or the volcanic gases are released into the atmosphere? Okay, so these chemicals like the sulfur dioxide, carbon dioxide, and hydrogen fluoride are some volcanic gases that pose hazard to people, animals, agriculture, and the property. Sulfur dioxide can lead to acid rain, and high concentrations of carbon dioxide, which is colorless and odorless, can be lethal to people, animals, and vegetation. For fluorine compounds, it can deform and kill animals that grazed on vegetation covered with volcanic ash. So once these chemicals are inhaled or taken in or eaten by living things like people and animals, and also when plants are exposed, so it can cause hazards or damages biologically, or can cause or trigger diseases. Okay, so for the last volcanic hazard, we have the ballistic projectiles. These are volcanic materials directly ejected from volcanoes vent with force and trajectories. As you can see here in the image, that is an example of a ballistic projectile. What are the impacts? Ballistic projectiles endanger life and properties by the force of impact of falling fragments, but this occurs only close to an eruption vent. So if you, for example, a farmland or a house that is near an erupting volcano, so that is the most vulnerable or prone to ballistic projectiles. Okay, so we are done with the volcanic hazards. So let us now proceed with the signs of impending volcanic eruption. The first sign for an impending volcanic eruption is the ground deformation. So you will observe that there will be some subtle only in the millimeters of ground movement may be detected only by sensitive instruments or equipment. So what are these equipment or instruments that is used in measuring ground movements? Examples is the precise engineering methods of surveying using the instrument electronic distance meter or the EDM to measure accurately 2 millimeter changes on ground if the slope for the volcano swells. Another equipment or instrument is swelling of the ground surface can be detected by using precision instruments and techniques that measure minute changes in slope, distance, or elevation at the ground surface. Deformation on the ground is also measured using data of repeated measurements from permanent global positioning system or the GPS that is installed around the volcano. So if there is any movement or changes on the ground, so it will be detected by or it will be seen using a GPS. Last instrument is used of remote sensing images. It also helps in comparing the before and the after features. Okay, so the next sign for an impending volcanic eruption is the geochemistry or the gas, water, and the temperature. So you will observe that there is a changes in temperature and water becomes more acidic. So this may be because of the presence of the magma. Okay, so the instruments or tools that is required in identifying the geochemistry is gas being emitted by volcanic can be measured directly by gas monitoring equipment. Collect gas and water samples from vents and fumaroles and analyze in the laboratory. And also there is a remote monitoring gas equipment and the third also sign is the seismic carbon dioxide, the seismicity or the volcanic earthquakes. There will be an observation in the increase in number of volcanic or earthquakes recorded. So the tool that is used in this sign is the seismometer, same with the earthquake, since you will observe in this sign that this is about the shaking or the earthquake. So you will use seismometer for detecting the occurrence of a volcanic earthquake. But what if you don't have a tool and you are living near an active volcano? So if you are one of the people living near volcanoes, you may observe premonitory events before an eruption. You can use your senses. So the first sense that you can use is visual or your observations. You will notice that there is an intensified steaming activity. So you will see it. Then what used to be white steam slowly or drastically changed to gray to dark, which suggests increasing presence of the ash. And also you can observe the drying up of vegetation or the drying up of streams and also the water wheels. There's also a crater glow at the summit area, and there is also an increasing frequency of rolling rocks from the summit or the localized landslides not related to the heavy rains. And also you can observe that the summit area appears to glow or becomes incandescent at night. So aside from visual or observations, you can also use other senses like the auditory observations. In here you can hear rumbling sounds, and then the olfactory, you can smell sulfur, or if you're not familiar with the smell of a sulfur, it smells like a rotten egg. And lastly, you can also feel, so you can sense that the ground is moving, there is ground movement, and also volcanic earthquake increasingly become felt. So from a weak shaking you can feel that it becomes stronger over time. In the Philippines, we use a system of volcano alert signals to define the current status of each volcanoes, if either that volcano is erupting or about to erupt. Okay, so the alert levels range from 0 to 5. The alert levels are used to guide any appropriate response from the local government units or the LGUs. Examples of volcano alert levels for the six most active volcanoes in the Philippines are found in the PHIVOLCS website. Okay, so we have here an example of alert level for the Mayon volcano. So if we have, for example, we are living near Mayon volcano, if the alert level is 0, then it is quiet, and we can interpret it as no eruption in foreseeable future. Now, for the danger zone, entry in 6-kilometer radius not advised. So, in the danger zone, it is a scope, okay, the surrounding area of the volcano. Okay, in the alert level 1, criteria for criteria for this level is low level unrest, very faint glow of crater, and there is also ash puffs may occur. As interpretation, no eruption imminent, and the danger zone is within the 6 kilometers. Now, for alert level number 2, main criteria for these levels are harmonic tremor, swelling of edifice, decrease in flow of wheel and spring, and intermittent crater glow. As an interpretation, there is an unrest probability of magmatic origin, and the danger zone may be extended up to 7 kilometers. For alert level 3, there is a relatively high unrest, more frequent tremors, and sustained crater glow. So what do these criteria mean? You can say that there is a magma closer to crater and eruption possible within weeks. For the danger zone, there is an extension of danger zone considered. So it may go beyond 7 kilometers. For the level 4, criterias are low frequency quakes. So there is now the presence of shaking, intense crater glow, and lava fragments in the summit. As an interpretation, we can say that there is eruption possible happening in days, and the danger zone is in 8 kilometers. Now, on the alert level 5, criteria for these levels are hazardous eruption, pyroclastic flows, and the ash fall. So we can say that pyroclastic fall may sweep down, and the danger to aircraft due to ash cloud. Danger zones, additional areas to be identified. So it can either be 8 kilometers or beyond it. It could reach more 9, 10, or more than that. Okay. For each alert level, there should be a corresponding action coming from authorities. So for example, take a look at Mayon volcano alert levels. If alert level 1 is declared, it is advised the people should not venture into the 6-kilometer radius permanent danger zone. Okay, so when we say permanent danger zone or PDZ for volcanoes, it is delineated and identified where no permanent habitat is recommended due to the possible impacts of various hazards at any time. For Mayon volcano, the area covered within 6-kilometer radius from the summit is delineated as the PDZ. As soon as alert level is raised from 0 to 1, it is recommended that people should not venture within this area at any time. This is already part of the precautionary action taken by the province of Albay when Alert 1 is declared. Okay, so now let's proceed to the hazard maps. These maps illustrate potential for ground-based volcanic impacts like the lava flows, pyroclastic flows, ash falls, volcanic gases, and more far-reaching hazards such as lahars in valleys that drain the volcano. So to help to understand the areas that may be affected by specific volcanic eruption phenomena, hazards or hazard maps are used. These maps show areas that can be affected and areas that are safe. Hazard maps are generated from various uses and are most useful in determining risk of living in identified potentially hazardous areas. So hazard maps can also help people to become aware of specific dangers like the lava flow, pyroclastic flows, ashfall, lahars, and the like they might face in the event that a volcano reactivates. So hazard maps of the active volcanoes in the Philippines can be viewed also in the VVOX website. So here are the examples of hazard maps for uh, experience. For you to experience these maps, you can visit the Hazard Hunter PH website. You can go to their website, the Hazard hunter.georisk.gov.ph. You need to click view map. At the left panel, you click download maps, and at the right panel, choose the desired location. So for example, you want to see the hazard map of the nearest volcano in your area, which is for example, you have here the Canlaon volcano. Okay, so you can see the hazard maps of that volcano. You can also save the images. Okay, and you can also download the hazard maps from the website. Okay, now so let's proceed to the last part of our discussion in volcanic hazards. What to do, or how prepared are we when volcanic eruption happens? So here are the things that we need to do before, during, and after. So before, we have 7 things to take note. First one is for longer term development planning, consult available volcano hazard maps that indicate areas declared as permanent danger zones and areas likely to be affected by different volcanic hazards so that these areas are avoided when choosing sites for developing new residential areas, commercial or business areas, siting for critical facilities, and others. Okay, so the you need to closely look or analyze the hazard maps, especially the volcanic hazard maps, no, for you to be guided on where you will put up your business, the location, and your area of residence. Second is you need to be aware of the kinds of volcanic hazards present in your area. Determine the distance of your residence, workplace, and livelihood. Like for example, if you're a farmer, so you need to know the distance of your farm from the volcano. And also know if you are within that kilometer radius from the volcanic summit of your location. So identify the distance of your house from volcano, or know if you are within the scope of the permanent danger zone. Okay, so number 3, be aware of the meanings of alert levels and recommended actions. Make sure your family emergency plan has taken this into consideration. Okay, for the alert levels, again, you can visit the FIBOK's website. Number 4, be aware of community efforts such as identified evacuation areas as well as designated pick-up points. Make sure that the whole family knows about this. So if you do not plan to stay in an evacuation area and has other alternatives, or you have another house outside of the town or in other province, make sure that the whole family is aware of this. So you also need to stock enough non-perishable off and potable water, cooking fuel, emergency light or flashlight, whistle, battery operated radio, medicines, first aid kit, dust mask should be made part of your emergency kit. Also, important documents. Okay, so don't forget that. And then consider provisions for pet animals, like what to do when eruption happens. How will you take care of your animals? Now, so please don't leave them inside your home because they too can be prone or can be at risk to the earthquake hazards. And lastly, always listen to the radio's latest PIVOX alert and information. Heed the advice of the community leaders or LGUs about evacuation procedures. So what to do during a volcanic eruption? The first thing that you need to do is stay inside the house or evacuation area. Do not go sightseeing. Second, listen to the radio for advice and information. And third, if you are outside and very near the volcano, leave the area immediately. If caught in ashfall or teprafall, seek shelter immediately. Sometimes pieces of rocks may be hot and seek care for burns right away. Okay, and then number 4, do not drive. If you must drive, keep the car windows up and do not operate the air conditioning system as this will bring in ash from the outside. Drive slowly as ash falls will reduce visibility. Ash on road surface can cause the roads to become slippery. And then check what your pet or livestock have enough food. Do not try to clean or shovel the ashfall during eruptions. So follow number 1, stay inside the house or evacuation area. So do not clean, just wait for the eruption to stop if you want to clean. And then lastly, protect yourself from the ashfall. So how to protect yourself? The first step is to close windows and doors to stop the ash from entering the house, and then turn off all electric fans and air conditioning units, and also wear dust mask to cover your face with, or you can cover your face with clean wet towel or cloth to prevent ash from irritating the eyes and entering the respiratory tract. And lastly, better use bottled water. If you must use tap water, always boil water first before using, because that water may be contaminated with the materials ejected, okay, and by the
Lastly,
volcano. After, what are the things that you need to do after an eruption? Number 1 is listen to the latest update about alert levels, other information from the radio. So make sure that the alert level is back to zero or everything is back to normal. Number 2, if the family has evacuated during the eruption, only the adult members of the family should be allowed to go home to inspect the house condition. But reminders that adult members only include those who are able and healthy. Okay, so do not allow like the senior citizens to go and inspect the house because due to illnesses, or maybe they have uh, health issues. Okay, so they may be vulnerable to the ashes or whatever they may inhaled when inspecting the house. And then only when local authorities or the LGU have declared that it is safe to go home that the family should return. And lastly, how to clean up an ash fall. So steps in cleaning: as soon as the ash fall has stopped, to remove ash immediately. Wear dust mask before you start cleaning. The recommended method for cleaning the ash is to lightly dump the ash so that it does not below when swept, and clean house roofs first to prevent damage to gutters and downpipes. Do not dump ash in sewage systems. Okay, inside the house, use damp cloth to remove ash and avoid vigorous rubbing of ash particles are very abrasive. And to remove the ashes from your car, you have to wash with plenty of water. Okay, so this ends our lesson number 4, Volcanic Hazards. If you have any questions, you can send me a direct message. You can also ask questions in our group chat, or you can leave a comment on this post. Thank you.